Equations from graphs. Take this title down. This graph in its entirety before you move on. No, you actually have to copy it down. So copy it down exactly as it is. Good. So implicitly, you probably in some way already know what to do. And if you don't, you know most everything to do. We're just going to go the reverse process. So what did we do before when we had an equation? We had this process that we used. It had 5 letters. Yeah, we found the map of each function. Now I want you to do that right now without any more help from me. So hopefully you have at least these 3 things down. You found the max was 6, the minimum was 2, and the midline, of course, is 4 right here. Now, it's a little less clear how to do the rest, but not much. Remember that the amplitude is the distance from the midline to the maximum or from the midline to the minimum. Those are both represented by A. So what's the difference from here to here? 4 minus 2. What's the difference from here to here? 6 minus 4. It's the same. So our amplitude is 2. Now the next thing is the period, right? Remember the period is how often this function repeats itself. So how often does this function repeat itself? Or when does it repeat itself? In other words, from where to where does this encapsulate all of the y values from the minimum to the maximum? In TBH, there are lots of places we can pick. Did you kind of figure it out? All right, well, here's a process. One way to think about it is to look at the maximum and to find the next maximum. So from here to here, I've gone from maximum all the way down back to maximum. That's an entire period. So max to max is one method. Another method is like finding the minimum and going from the minimum to the minimum, right? That has all of the y values that I need. That's an entire period. You can also just go midline to midline, but notice that if I do this, if I stopped here, if I start here and I stop here, I haven't included all of my y values. I haven't gone and included my max. So I'm going to have to skip one and choose that next midline. So each of those represents a way to find the period. Now what's the distance from my maximum to my maximum? That's a question you have to answer. Well, what's the distance between my minimum and my minimum? The midline one's easy. I'm not going to ask for that, right? That's one way you can check yourself. So what you're really saying is, what's the difference from here to here? And the distance is not a negative pi over 2, because I'm saying it's a distance. What's the distance between a negative pi over 2 and 0? Well, it's pi over 2, so that's pi over 2. What's the distance between 0 and 3 pi over 2? 3 pi over 2. And all you've seen so far are two fractions. You got confused. Don't. I'm just saying, look, to find the total distance from the maximum to the maximum, I'm going to add this little piece and that little piece. And of course, that gives me 4 pi over 2, or 2 pi. Or if I was looking at the minimum, right? What's the distance from the minimum? Well, that's 3 pi over 2. That distance, pi over 2. So same idea, 3 pi over 2 plus pi over 2, that's 4 pi over 2, which is 2 pi. And like I said, to check yourself, look at this midline to midline thing, right? It's just 2 pi. It's pretty clear. All right, so our period is 2 pi. but our period doesn't go in the equation. Our equation is this thing, or this thing. So notice that there are some things that are the same. So we're going to write this in terms of sine, cosine, a negative sine, and a negative cosine. That's what we're up to. Make sure everything's copied here, pause it, and then move on. We're going to go equation 1, 2, 3, and 4 all at the same time. All right. We know everything except for the h and the b. We know the a and the m in each time, right? So we can say that function is, what's my a? Well, it's 2 times sine of, what's b? How do I find b? I know that my period is 2 pi over b, but how do I get b? I know my period, right? I don't just throw 2 pi in there. I know my period, it's 2 pi. So I've got to solve for b. So what is b? b is also 2 pi over p. It's 2 pi over the period. And my period is found right here. So to find b, I go 2 pi divided by 2 pi. That's 1. So I don't have to write anything there. It's just 1. So now I'm going to write x, and then I'm going to put a parentheses here. And what am I adding at the end? The midline. That's 4, so plus 4. Now, look at this. I can do the same thing for g of x. If I'm going to say that's the cosine one. Well, what's different? The a is the same, the m's the same, the b is the same. The only thing that changes is the h. So let's write that down too. 2 times cosine of x plus something plus 4. And we'll say that h of x and I of x are almost the same. One of them will be a negative sine. One of them will be a negative cosine. So fill in the information you know right now. Okay, did you do it? Here it is. Now look, at this point you're probably overwhelmed. And I understand that. But you're wrong to be overwhelmed. I promise you. This is a very, very simple process that I'm explaining in detail here. In the end, you'll be able to do this in seconds. It'll be so quick for you. And we're only doing 4 equations just so you can see that you can write this in any of those ways, which some of you have already seen. All right, let's start with sine. Where does sine start? Remember how I asked this question? Where does sine start? And you guys tell me it starts on its midline. Okay, so let's find all the midlines. Here's a midline, here's a midline, here's a midline, here's a midline. What happens in the normal sine graph? What does it do? Remember, it looks like this, and right, so after the midline, it's increasing. So which of these are increasing? Let's see. This one is, and this one is. So what I'm telling you is to choose one of those points. Let's say that it's pi. And so if I was talking about this one, I'd say that sine is, it's the same as 2 sine x minus pi plus 4, and there's an equation. Done. What is that saying? Well, it's saying, look, if I took the sine graph, right, which would be, it would go up right here, and if I just shifted it pi to the right, so minus pi, pi to the right, then it would be this graph, actually. Cool. For cosine, what are you going to have to do? That's right, find the maximum, because that's where it is. We've got a max here and a max here. Pick one point. I don't care which. You can pick both if you really want to. Well, I'm going to pick this one. Minus pi over 2. So I'll write x plus pi over 2, and there it is, a graph that shifted to the left, pi over 2. Negative 2 sine of x. This one's so tricky. Oh my gosh. Right? It starts on its midline, And negative sign goes down afterward. Oh, that's what we have here. So this is fine as it is. I don't need to add anything to it. And I want you to, of course, finish the negative cosine. Work. I wrote both of them down. Negative 2 cosine of x plus pi over 2 if you're here, or let's see, plus 3 pi over 2 if you're here. Although I don't think I was looking at the right point. This one, would, of course, would have to be minus pi over 2. That one would be plus 3 pi over 2. And there it is. How to write equations. Yay. Just practice graph down and then do all the work on your own. All of it. Remember, you've got to find the map. You've got to find the period. And then you just plug it into any equation you want to. Sine, cosine, positive sign, negative sign, whatever. Stuck. You can press unplay. This is like the halfway mark, alright? But you should ideally, of course, do it first. Alright, here you go. Found the period was pi from here to here. Right, from here to here it's pi. Plugged it into my equation to find that my b would be equal to 2. Right, so I found b equals 2. Finished product, right? So in this last part, I cleverly put the things that stay the same, right? 3, 2, and the negative 5. And got two equations down. I'm just going to add the negative sine and cosine here so you can follow through my thinking again. So see, negative sine, well, again, no shift at all needed, so I can just write just a plain old x there. And that's exactly right. Or I could have chosen this point or that point. See how they're decreasing afterward. So I'll just pick plus pi, just so you have another example. And a negative 3 cosine, let's see, I pick this point or this point. Those are the minimums. So this one would be at x plus 3 pi over 4. And it shifts to the left 3 pi over 4. I'm done. All right, we'll practice this on Monday. See you guys.